Hey there, I'm Rich Bruck, and you've just tuned into Tuning Down for Terror. I've spent a lot of my life on the road, dive bars, theaters, backs of vans at 3 a.m., playing guitar and watching the world roll by at 70 miles an hour. Most of my stories are the usual road tales: bad sound checks, worse hotel rooms, and the occasional bar fight, but some of them don't have explanations. And they're the ones that stick with you long after the amp's been turned off and the lights go down. So welcome. Grab your headphones, settle in, and let's tune down for terror. Because if the road has taught me anything, it's that the strangest gigs are the ones you never forget. Hello and welcome to Tuning Down for Terror. I'm Rich Bruck, and after years of playing in bands, I can tell you that the road teaches you two things: patience and how to spot a lie. But sometimes what you see isn't a lie at all, it's just a lonely truth. And if you have ever been the last one in an empty bar or an empty venue, you know that feeling all too well when the silence gets just a little too thick. Well, this first story comes from a Sunday night gig just like that in Cincinnati a few years ago. We had just wrapped up a late set at this dive bar. Typical dive bar. It was a classic room with low ceilings and sticky floors and a back exit that smelt like stale beer and God knows what else. But that something certainly clung to your jacket even after you left. The crowd was thin, just a few diehards and the bar staff. I always take my time packing up the gear. It's the only quiet time you get sometimes. Just me and my road-battered guitar and the hum of the cooling amps. And if you listen close enough in those moments, you can almost hear the room breathing. So I was coiling my cables when I glanced out into the main room, and the house lights had been turned on, and that beautiful fluorescent glare revealed every smudge and every water stain on the ceiling tiles. But what really caught my eye was the small stage, and specifically one of the cheap wooden chairs that we used for gear right on the corner of the stage. And it wasn't empty. There was a man sitting in it. He was wearing a heavy, dark coat, too heavy for the season, and a brimmed hat, with his head bowed so deep that I couldn't even make out his face. He was absolutely still, and not the stillness of sleep, but more the stillness of waiting. I figured he was a patron who had passed out, and I called out to him, friendly but firm, "Hey buddy, it's time to pack it up, we're closing the room." But no response. As a matter of fact, not even a twitch. I walked toward the stage about 20 feet away, and then 10 feet away, and that's when the little hairs on my neck stood up. The chair was positioned perfectly to face the spot that I usually stood. If he'd been there during the set, well, I definitely would have seen him. I should have seen him. So I got to be about 5 feet away, and I felt the temperature drop. Just around him. Like he was pulling the warmth out of the air. I still couldn't see his face, just a black cavity beneath the hat. Deeper than shadow should be. And there was no breathing sound, no movement at all. I was ready to reach out and tap him on the shoulder, kind of a last resort before getting the bartender, when I heard the lead singer's voice ripped through the silence from the lobby. "Hey Rich, let's go, man, stop messing with your cables." And the volume was shocking, so I turned my head away just for a split second to shout back that I was almost done, but when I spun back to the chair, it was completely empty. The heavy wooden chair was exactly where it was, still slightly warm to touch when I gripped it, but the man was gone. There was nowhere he could have gone that fast, and if he'd moved, well, I would have heard it. I mean, the floorboards in that place, they creaked if you breathed too hard. I didn't tell anyone about this for weeks until we were back at that very club, and I happened to be mentioning this to the club owner, and he just looked at me and he nodded, totally unfazed. He said, "Oh, that was just one of the regulars. He loved the guitar players." He was murdered in that corner back in the 80s, stabbed 17 times while the band played through their last song. And now he just sticks around for the music. Some gigs, you just want the crowd to be louder if they're going to watch you play, but you at least want to know they're alive. And speaking of things that vanish in the night, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, I'm going to tell you all about a hitchhiker who didn't want to ride. He just wanted a word. Welcome back to Tuning Down for Terror. You've tuned in to the sounds of the open road, the lonely miles that give you time to think and sometimes time to worry. If you've ever driven through the desert at night, then you know how the darkness out there just feels different, heavier. And this next story happened to me around 2 a.m., somewhere in the high desert of Arizona. We were driving the van from Vegas to Phoenix, and I was taking the night shift. Nothing but blacktop, stars, and the dull glow of the dashboard. In those moments, you're basically a satellite, disconnected from the world. The radio had gone to static an hour ago, and I hadn't seen another car for at least half of that time. And that's why I noticed him immediately. A figure walking on the shoulder, moving against the flow of traffic. A classic hitchhiker setup, bag on the ground, thumb out. But if you're walking the wrong direction at 2 a.m. in the desert, you're either lost or you are looking for something specific. Now, I usually don't stop for hitchhikers, but something about this guy, I don't know, it got me. And he was wearing an old, too big denim jacket, and he looked confused, not threatening, vulnerable even. So I pulled the van over, maybe about 20 feet past him, and I leaned across to open the passenger window. The dome light, it flickered just once. As he shuffled up to the window, I said, "Hey man, where are you headed?" He didn't answer. He just stood there, looking at me. And when I say looking, I mean staring. His eyes were wide and strangely bright in the dark. Too bright. Like they were catching light from somewhere that I couldn't see. His face was pale, almost gray in the dashboard glow. I waited for a moment, feeling my hands tighten on the steering wheel, and he lifted his hand, not to point down the road, but to rest his fingertips against the glass. He traced a single, slow line down the window, from the top corner to the bottom. The sound it made was just wrong. It was too sharp, like fingernails on stone. And then he spoke. His voice was a flat, dry whisper, barely audible over the idling of the van. And he said, "Tell your singer to listen to the words." Now, not a singer, your singer. Well, my blood went ice cold. My singer. How could this stranger in the middle of nowhere know anything about the band, let alone who the singer was? We hadn't played in Arizona in months. And before I could even ask, he just turned and started walking back the way he came, back into the desert, away from any town, not even looking for a ride. I yelled, "Wait, what does that mean?" He didn't break his stride, he didn't turn his head, and I threw the van into gear and took off, watching him disappear in the rearview mirror. And here's the thing, if he'd kept walking, I should have been able to see him for miles with my headlights, but he was just gone, swallowed by the dark in seconds. To this day, I have no idea who he was, but the next day, I made sure my singer knew, And he just got really quiet. He told me that he'd been struggling with a particular dark set of lyrics in a new song. Lyrics about guilt, about voices in the desert, about debts that follow you. And he scrapped the whole thing after that. Sometimes on the road, the message finds you, even if the messenger doesn't make any sense. And that's if they were really there at all. And that's all for this session of Tuning Down for Terror. Thank you for listening, and remember to follow the channel and tune in next week for more true stories from the forgotten highways. But until then, keep your eyes on the road. Good night.